Shall we? Yes. Alessio, may I? Yes, 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 yes. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Interarts. Our humble abode in the middle of Barcelona with wonderful views to the mountain and to the seaside. We're very, very happy to have you all here at the end of this 3-year project that has been, as you know, all of us in normal life been also hardly hit by COVID and the pandemic and whatnot afterwards. So I don't know, I think that we're all extremely pleased and it's a heartfelt welcome. It's a heartfelt welcome from all of us at Interarts for this final event of the MEMEX project. MEMEX is Memories, Experiences for Inclusive Digital Storytelling. We will hear about the project now, but let me just walk you through the program. It is the final event of a 3-year project. It is a final event that wants to showcase the results of what has been done in these 3 years and what has been achieved, but it is an event that also wants to continue the conversation as regards the policy needs for issues related to cultural heritage fruition, access to culture, participation in culture, and of course, the role of technological innovation in enabling access to participation in culture, but also at the end of the story, social inclusion, because this is what we have talked about in MEMEX. How does cultural heritage enable people to feel that they're part of the society that they live in with, in this case, the use of technological innovation? So we'll hear about all of this. The first half of the event is organized around 2 sessions. The first will delve into what we have done to facilitate participation in cultural heritage through specific methodologies which are related to digital storytelling, participation of communities at risk of exclusion, and we will hear about the work that we have carried out again in this 3 years. And the second session will delve into the research that has been carried out within MEMEX to serve as a support to work with these communities to help them in the fruition and in participating in cultural heritage in their cities, in their societies. There are 3 cities, Barcelona, Lisbon, and Paris, in which we have worked, and this final event is taking place in one of these 3 cities. The event will close with a roundtable, as I have said earlier, that will tackle the issues that we have been tackling within MEMEX, sorry for the repetition, but from a European policy perspective. And it will be a conversation with a number of experts. And let me open brackets here. We're all present today here in this room. We are online. And for the first 2 sessions, all the speakers are here in the room, but for the policy roundtable, we will have a hybrid session with some of the people speaking from this room and some people connected online. So it will be, sorry, I pick up again, a conversation with experts that know about heritage, technology, but also inclusion, and also the role of public administrations in fostering the design and implementation of public policies to support social inclusion through and with culture. Without further ado, the first intervention before we go into these sessions is, of course, to know more about MEMEX. And the floor is to our project leader, Alessio Del Bue. Thank you, Alessio, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mercedes, for the presentation, and also thank you to Interarts for organizing these events that take us together, both physical, with a lot of people here, and hybrid online. So my role at the moment is to give you an overview of this project that has taken 3 years of work from our side. And I would like to start with this picture because it's a very lively picture. It shows ourselves during one of the project meetings, but also show a bit the time we were working all together. As Mercedes mentioned already, the project was 3 years. We started in December 2019, and in February 2020, we know all the problems we had to face with COVID. So despite all of this, the consortium was lively and working towards the objective of the project. And the project is very interdisciplinary. So we have 11 partners that comes not only from different countries of Europe, from Portugal, from Spain, from France, Italy, Ireland, and so on, but also in the teams that the consortium was asked to work on, because it's a consortium with technological partners and the partners that are coming from social science, and as well partners that works really closely with the migrants and communities at risk of exclusion. And as Mercedes already said, this project is unique in a sense, because it tried for the first time to tackle the problem of social inclusion in different perspectives, and try to research and study if technology might help with process in the project of social inclusion. So I would like to explain you what is MEMEX and what we try to do with something very tangible that you all know. I'm going to show you here a map. So here it's a map of Europe, and you use maps for many reasons. One, of course, is to understand where you are, and also to understand which places are we, or for general knowledge to understand the geography of our place. So MEMEX try to one of the things MEMEX does is try to overlay onto this map something that is pretty much intangible. And there are these dots localizing in these specific places of Europe that are the pilot's location of the project itself. Let's a bit of zoom out on a map which is more local. Here in Barcelona, you see that the longest streets on the map is La Rambla, so it's an iconic place of Barcelona. And you see that in these maps, you don't have only streets and other things, but you have also some location, like they can be monuments, or in general cultural heritage. They can be shops, they can be restaurants, anything that has a place in the world is there. So MEMEX onto these, and there are these green and black placeholders, put also some other information, and something that is rather immaterial. MEMEX put into context, into a map, stories. And these stories are in general localized with specific places. And in the context of MEMEX, they are cultural heritage places. So MEMEX tell stories of a place, of an area, geolocalize it, and make it accessible through this information. But it can be browsed or checked online by people as well, or even in the very same places where people are working, as we are going to see later. And what is the core of MEMEX? There are stories. The stories of the people. Here you see an example. They are in a video format that tells the story of the inhabitants of these places that normally are not heard about, or you hear because you know these people closely. The idea is to render these stories available in an easy way, and of course through the use as well of technologies. So really, the MEMEX tried to do a connection with the story of people that lives in place, that tell story about the place and give another point of view of the places of the heritage we are talking about. And we try to map this information of the story into this map and to geolocalize it itself. So one specific and very important component in MEMEX is as well the way we tell the stories. So one important and focal aspect is what is called the digital storytelling. So MEMEX is a platform that is online, and in this case, it can enable a very rich way to tell stories in a digital form, not only using, for instance, the video I showed you before, but also text, audio, and other type of multimedia information to make this rich. But this information per se is useless if not weaved together in stories that are really compelling and then are really important for the people that are telling these stories and for the one that watch these stories. So one part of MEMEX indeed is a methodology for this digital storytelling. So the way to put the knowledge, the experiences of people into these stories. And we'll hear about a lot later about these techniques and the methodology we developed during the project. In particular, MEMEX wanted to link these stories to the heritage that surrounds us, because heritage is something that is common in our culture and within us. So is a glue of our society itself. It is, and it's something visible and very kind of known in our places where we live on. So we would like to have a digital storytelling methodology that involves our cultural heritage and link this cultural heritage with our experiences. One thing that is very unique of the project, very important as well, we would like to use digital storytelling for help to be known the stories of people that normally are at the margin of our society. And the case studies of MEMEX were directly tuned and tailored to these participants that involved. There were migrants community or communities that for any reason are excluded from cultural activity. So these socially fragile people were involved from the first day of the project in order to design the methodologies for them, and also to find a way of technology that could help to create the stories and also visualize these stories on digital support, like the map I showed you before. The 3 pilots, they have been in 3 locations in Europe. Of course, one in Barcelona with a migrant women community. Another one in Paris with the District 19, Rosa Park, where we had communities at risk of poverty and for other reason being excluded to cultural activities, and one in Portugal, in Lisbon, where we had migrants from first, second generation that were involved in our project in order to tell stories and work on the methodologies for storytelling. So, of course, we faced the challenges given the fact that this was a research problem, and we first approached this type of community and with this type of methodology. One, of course, is the fight against existing stereotypes, which are really a sensible topic for these communities towards the migrants, and especially at the community at risk of exclusion. So, and one other topic was very challenging was to find the way to discuss and to understand how technology might help these people at risk of exclusion, since we didn't have any previous activities related to this subject. So we had to redesign and reinvent from scratch, from the beginning, how to work all together between technology and social partners in order to understand how to develop this framework all together. And of course, I already mentioned it, but indeed, the COVID-19 was a really thing that supported us. Of course, there was the need of digital technology to put people together, but the way this work is done, it have the basis to create safe spaces and a strong bondage with the participants of the study. So working online was not an ideal situation, but we find our way also through this all together. And then always talking about technology, of course, one of the challenges to create a technology that is easy to use even for touch-savvy participants in the projects. And this was also one point we had to face during MEMEX. I would like to just show you a glimpse about the technology of MEMEX, because my colleagues, myself as well later will talk about this in more detail. So the technology is related to the creation of an app. Why we have chosen an app? Because an app is the most simple, let's say, software you can find on your smartphone and that you're used to use every day. And also for the participant, it was something that was friendly. And the technology had to create these maps of stories and memories of people. And through this, we had to research methods that they were able not only to localize the story inside the map or our physical space, but also to connect digitally the stories with all the knowledge related to our cultural heritage and heritage assets like monuments, statues, and so on, that were cited by the migrants themselves during their storytelling activities. One other things, so we created this app that you show here a glimpse that enable everyone to browse the stories around the app and go directly on the map. I show you in the first slide to check the stories where they are localized by clicking over the location and see the content of the stories really there. Here you an example about a story in Lisbon, where of course you can have an image that represents the story and some text that describe it, and also the connections of the story between different heritage or other stories told by other migrants, which was another aspect of MEMEX, of this way of linking the stories we created during the project itself. And one last thing, we went further. We would like to visualize this story in the real world using augmented reality. So using your phone to see things, digital information in the world, in this case, that are the very same stories created by the participants, in a way that you can really see on the physical places the stories were about the story of the participant itself. This creates like a sense of presence, of course, in the physical place where we link what is intangible, a story told by a person, to something that is physical, the very object the story is about. And with this, I would like to conclude, of course, saying that we developed different apps, and we will talk later on about their function. And would like to leave the word for starting up the first session of the meeting.
Well done, Alessio, because one, he has given us the overview of the project. Two, he has done it on time, you know, within the time set. No, guys, this is important. And he has broken the ice. Now, my name is Mercedes Giovinazzo, And I am tasked by the consortium today to help the flow of the sessions. So please bear with me, all of you, if you see that, I raise my hand, I start waving, etc., because I have to be the bad cop today. And having said this, and hoping that you will abide by me, I am going to call for the first session my good friend and colleague, Cristina da Milano, European Center for Cultural Management, and who will coordinate the session on digital storytelling, a tool for inclusion. You go ahead and show everything. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks, Interarts, for the hospitality. Let's start this session about digital storytelling by showing a digital story. And one of those recorded and created here in Barcelona.
Rolling. Música. Action. I came from Nigeria. Music is one of the most important things in my life. Music is my medicine. What makes me feel better when I'm sad, when I miss my home and family, when I'm worried on how to move on in life. I really love Lyceum. It is a building that has attracted my attention. It looks really beautiful from the outside. When I look from it on Google, I saw how it's inside. I thought, wow, this is really incredible. I don't have access to it. There is no way I can pay for the expensive entrance. Luckily enough, I have other places in Barcelona where I can enjoy music and dance. Sigues aquí, siempre vas con el viento. Que te traiga el viento a bailar muy lento. Vienes avanzando, yo te estoy llamando. Yo te estoy llamando.
Okay, so I will moderate this session, but I'm also presenting something within this session. So now I put on the hat of the presenter, and I'll start by giving the floor to myself to tell you something about audience development and digital storytelling. And you will hear why I put together these two things in the presentation. Well, obviously, the whole idea of opening up access to culture and fostering participation in culture is strictly related to the concept of audience development. And the first thing we had to do within MEMEX was to find a shared understanding of what audience development means, because there are still many misunderstandings about the concept. Then we had to define a common methodology of digital storytelling, which was the tool we have selected within MEMEX in order to provide an audience development framework. And last but not least, we had to implement some audience development related strategies to MEMEX. So let's start by saying that we all agreed upon a definition of what is audience development, which is shared at European level. And the definition is that audience development is a strategic, dynamic, and interactive process of making culture widely accessible. The magic word here is process, meaning that it's not a single event, it's not a single activity, but it's a long-lasting and time-consuming process, which puts together, create a relationship between cultural organizations, cultural places, and society as a whole. The second element, as I said, was to agree upon a definition of a methodology, which in this case was the methodology of digital storytelling. You heard Alessio telling us already what digital storytelling is, basically. Here you can see let's say, more in-depth description of what it is basically a practice of creating short stories, maximum 2 or 3 minutes. You have just seen one of those stories. And obviously, it is a way to empower traditional storytelling by using videos, images, pictures, drawings, and personal audios recorded by those who wrote the stories. In a way, we can say that digital storytelling is the modern expression of the ancient art of storytelling, which is actually we all have in common as human beings. Third point, as I said, we needed to put together audience development strategic approaches with digital storytelling. And this is exactly what we did. I think we achieved the goal, I have to say. One of the strategies is place. And actually all the stories are located in physical places. So they had as a trigger the physical presence of heritage. Then capacity building. One of our first activities within MEMEX was exactly that of sharing concepts, theories, and practices of audience development and digital storytelling with our partners and with their stakeholders. Third strategic approach, co-creation. This is quite obvious because the stories are autobiographical. So obviously the process of creating the story is actually a co-creative process. So participants were engaged since the very beginning, starting from their own local cultural heritage. Partnership. You will hear from my colleagues that all the activities realized in Lisbon, Barcelona, and Paris were realized thanks to very fruitful partnership with local stakeholders, which acted as bridges with those communities. Digital, and obviously we are using digital tools in this case, not only because the stories are digital, but also because there is the creation and the use of the app that Alessio introduced. Last but not least, use of data. And within MEMEX, we had a part which was totally devoted to social impact analysis. So to try to gather data and to interpret data in order to assess the impact that the process of storytelling, of digital storytelling, had on the communities. My last slide. How did we implement the digital storytelling methodology? There was a first part, which was the training, as I said, the capacity building activity addressed to partners and stakeholders. Second part, to select the participants, contact them, and create the groups. And that was the part which was mostly affected by COVID, because as Alessio mentioned, of course, we went online, but create social bonds, create groups and safe spaces where people could feel free to share their stories, to create the stories, was not easy online. You will hear that also from my colleagues afterwards. Last but not least, of course, cultural heritage was always the starting point of our digital storytelling methodology. So the cultural dimension was paramount in this process. Then there were brainstorming sessions to share ideas and values associated to cultural heritage. And we discovered that we have different ideas, different cultures produce different ideas of what cultural heritage might mean. Third, of course, writing the story and recording it, then use creative means to enrich the story, personal pictures, videos, drawings in some cases, and at the end, a sharing moment in which the stories were shared within the groups of participants, first of all, and then, of course, through the app. So this is it from my side. Now I put on the hat of the moderator, and I call here Valentina Nisi from ITI, and she will tell us something about participation and co-design to influence technological outcomes.
Okay, thank you, Cristina. I think I'm gonna sit down. Yeah,
Okay.
just because to avoid more drama. Okay. First of all, yeah, thank you. And I want to introduce the team without which none of the work at ITI would have been possible. Like OPI, Nuno Nunes, and then postdoctoral fellow Paolo Bale and Vanessa Cesario, who are here, and now our research assistant Dina and Anna Betancourt, UX lead and user study lead. And then we'll show you what we've done, and as of course as a team and in collaboration with the whole project participants. We have been looking at how from social inclusion, actually, cultural policies are moving towards social cohesion, which is quite a sort of an interesting and different movement. So from removing barriers to culture, we're actually trying to foster collaborations and well-being among groups that are very different. And digital tools can definitely play a role into this. And this is how we've engaged with the help of the social partners and also of the technical partners with our target groups of the communities, and try and understand what are the issues that are more at heart and what are the ways that technology can support them. Cultural heritage itself is a dynamic concept that is becoming more akin to a discourse rather than secluded objects or specific statues or sites. Is a conversation with the community that inhabit a place. And for this reason, storytelling is a fundamental tool, as well as working on the ground through and with the people that know how to engage communities that can be at risk of exclusion, fragile communities, whether they're migrants or risk of poverty or refugees. And again, the bridging from these communities through the social partners towards the technological partners has been what we've been occupied with. Finally, yes, this also I want to enhance that this connection through the social partners and technical partners will prevent what is known in the EU as the or what is known from the receiving and as the EU burnout effect. The project ends and what happens with the people that have been involved. No more funding, no more research, so you're not interesting anymore. So I think with MEMEX, this has been taken care of with a really forward-looking structure to the project. And for this reason, we're proud to boast that more than 100 stories have been produced, four more co-design and participatory sessions, 82 local evaluations of the app, and you will see and hear more details about this later on in this presentation. And all of this despite the COVID pandemics. Thank you. So the first, we're going to run through this presentation, the co-design and participatory study that we have organized to bring together the different expertise of the partners and the community members that we were able to reach. The first one started on as a field study in February 2020, just before the pandemic, and it was a way to involve the local communities of Lisbon in this case, and understanding with photo challenge of 1 week, what was cultural heritage, what is cultural heritage for them, what are the thematics that emerge. So they were asked to provide 5 pictures over the course of a week with a textual description. And the booklets that we collected, around 10, had this format, where here you can see, I found this was one example. They put their lens towards statues and actually murals, but the stories and the themes emerging are those of women that emerged across cultures. You can see Cape Verdean drummers together with the Lisbon fisher women, and even the Queen Caterina de Bragança. if that's any Portuguese can correct me. And they are celebrated across their cultural and their social strata as innovators and carriers of culture. Across the analysis of the stories and the text, we highlighted around 9 main thematics, which were life and memories, history, nature, reflective spaces, social spaces, transport, education, gender, gentrification. You might not think that this is cultural heritage, but actually for them it is, and their stories are representing it. And through the pandemics, we were unable to replicate these field studies across the many countries and pilots that we wanted, but this was a beginning that was brought forward as a discussion with all of the partners and somehow trickled through the requirements and design of the technological tools. We further engaged again with our social partners in gathering community members to participate in other co-design and participatory design sessions, speculative design in the form of magic machines. This is a session we had with several first and second generation migrants in Lisbon, where they have to build, after some discussion about their issues, migrants, they have to build a magic machine that will resolve that issue. And this is to free up their conversation and hopes and desires around it, rather than the machines itself. We always utilized very low-tech materials, as you can see, so everybody's allowed to express themselves. We continue this participatory workshop through the building of scenarios and wireframes, and finally, all of these knowledge and this conversation were channeled through building personas and scenarios for the MEMEX app, and this will be presented in the session later on. Finally, to sum up, the major challenge were obviously the pandemics and the fact that a project about inclusion and cohesion was really difficult. The achievement was a strong emotional involvement from participants and stakeholders, as well as the creation of safe spaces through storytelling and through co-design processes for the communities to express themselves, their needs and their desires. And finally, the MEMEX integrated app, which is now in a way our showcase technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina, first of all, for keeping the time wonderfully, and second, for taking us through this journey through the field study, which was somehow preliminary to the pilot projects themselves, and through this participative and co-creative approach. So now we can go in depth into the 3 pilot projects, Lisbon, Barcelona, and Paris. We have one representative for all of them, Ivo Oosterbeek from Mapa das Ideias, and you have the hard duty to represent also Interarts and MCA Dédale. So the floor is yours, and you will be great, and I will keep the time. So look at me every now and then.
This one, okay, thank you so much. So how do we move the...
It's here.
Okay, I should be here.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I will, don't know how to use this. Okay, I will start to maybe describe the role of the pilots in the project. So as you could hear from Alessio, but also from Cristina and Valentina, this is a double-headed monster, this project, right? On one hand, we wanted to know what is the role that culture can play in social inclusion. And on the other hand, we wanted to know what role can technology play in that same process. And the pilots are the mechanism that in the project we found to test, verify how this worked. And so for the pilots themselves, we wanted to have a minimum of diversity, not only from the point of view of the participants that we were going to engage, but also from the point of view of the cultural assets that we had at our disposal for this. And so while we had a project, a pilot in Barcelona, another one in Lisbon, another one in Paris, the Barcelona and Lisbon pilots both had a plethora of heritage that is very well consubstantiated. And so it was, they are very rich from the point of view of material heritage that kind of forms the cultural landscape of these areas. The Paris pilot, on the other hand, had a slightly different challenge, because this is a heritage that needs to be elevated through cultural mediation a lot more strongly. And from the point of view of the populations that we were working on with, while they are all at-risk groups, because of course this is a social inclusion project, in Barcelona, we specifically worked with migrant women, most of them working in the domestic type of housing labor, right? In Paris, we were working with a very diverse group of people living in a priority neighborhood. And in Lisbon, we were working with migrants from several places, most of them former Portuguese colonies living in a widespread area around Lisbon because of gentrification. These pilots were, of course, done by these four project partners: Interarts in Spain, Microculture in Dédale in France, Mapa das Ideias in Portugal. We all had the very intensive support ECOM, our partner, that kind of gave us the basis for the methodology, that kind of did the overview, the social analysis of what was happening throughout the project. But of course, we will talk about this a little bit more in depth later, but these were not the only institutions working on these pilots. We had, each of the pilots had a constellation of smaller local organizations from the cultural and the social sector that were helping us not only work with local heritage, but also work with local populations. So first we will look at some of the data here. We are not going to go for each of these numbers, of course, but as you can see, we had a very intensive social analysis project. This is a research project, and so we had a lot of work with doing interviews to the participants and the local stakeholders. We had a lot of technology testing activities, and we, as Cristina already spoke, also had this dimension of capacity building, of passing this methodology and the practices, what we were learning, to our local stakeholders and other partners, not only in physical activities, but also in many presentations such as this one. Each of the pilots work with groups of participants. We all had some issues, as already were explained, with mobilization, mainly because of COVID, also because of the precarity of these at-risk groups. And so we do not have much bigger numbers here of people that were working with us. Although you will see that most of the people that were engaged produced stories, and these were interesting processes in which people were finding new ways to use technology to think about storytelling in multiple dimensions, storytelling from a verbal point of view, from a visual point of view, and it was an interesting project from that side as well. And now we would go again about the local partnerships. So each of us, from the beginning of the pilots, from moment one, we all found cultural institutions that could help us not only with the pilots themselves, but also to support the development of the application, trying to find digital data about the heritage collections that could be integrated in the application's baseline of information. And also social partners, people in Portugal's case, who are addressing the needs of migrants when they arrive to Portugal, and trying to mesh what we were doing with MEMEX with the way those our populations already related to these local stakeholders, so that they could have a more continuous flow of relationship with the tissue. Is that a word in English? Maybe not. Right? Yeah. Okay. The social partners were also very important because they are the best placed players to understand what are the effective needs of the communities, because of course we can relate to the literature, the academic literature on the field, but it's always too general. And if we go to one stakeholder, they will tell us, you know, with these people, they have these specific needs. We go to a different stakeholder that's 3 neighborhoods below, and they will have a very different narrative about what people need. And this allowed us to permanently adapt the pilots to the needs of the communities we were working with. The challenges, the common ones, are pretty much the same as the ones that Valentina already presented before. I would only add here the difficulty in engaging participants in long-term processes because of their lifestyle is very different with at-risk communities. And this forced us to a certain degree, and it was a learning process for us as well. It forced us to think about different strategies to reach out to the communities, to permanently engage them at the personal level, at the communication level, in all sorts of ways. But the pilots also had very specific challenges. One of them had to do with the tech savviness of participants because of this very strong technological component of the project. The Paris pilot specifically had a problem on the lack of institutions that could support the pilot in the territory. So they had, sorry, I'm already late. I'll try to speed up. And in the Lisbon project, the precarity of the migrants and the lack of established communities due to gentrification were also a big challenge. But the achievements were, of course, very strong on the personal level. We saw very strong emotional feedback to the process. People felt happy in various ways, and they formed cohesive groups, and they were mostly happy. We saw this time and time again. They felt good about participating in sessions in which they could share their perspectives and not feel judged or criticized by whatever worldview they have on things. But we also had very specific achievements that had to do with the nature of each of the participant groups. In Barcelona, I would maybe detail here that the group of women that was already somewhat consistent at the beginning of the project became a very, very cohesive group by the end. And we saw clear evidence of that in January when we were here presenting the project in the capacity building event. In Paris, we also see that very significantly, the participants feel pride, they feel heard, but also they feel the pride in being key stakeholders in giving value to the territory, that they are an active agent in making that place more livable and more interesting. And in Lisbon, the thing that we found to be most significant as an outcome of the pilot was that people felt at home in the area. They felt that to a certain degree, they are already citizens of Lisbon. They already own a bit of the city. And that's it. Yeah. No, it's not it. Okay. So yeah, finally, we also had, we still have the project exhibition. We have an itinerary project exhibition that was first inaugurated in Lisbon, then it went to Paris, then from Paris to Genoa, and is currently on in Barcelona, where we detail in general what were the fundamental pillars of the project, and we showcase some of the stories from each pilot. And now that's it.
Thanks, Ivo. You were allowed a longer time because you had to speak as a representative of the 3 pilot projects. So thanks a lot for that. And you are an actor, by the way. You have a future as an actor. So congratulations. I think we are now starting the second session. Thank you all for having given, hopefully, a clear or almost clear idea of what the digital storytelling part of the project looked like, how it was embedded in this wider idea of audience development. Now let's go and delve a little bit more into the technological part, and I give the floor again to my friend Mercedes, who's moderating the second session.
No, I know I'm not an actress, but no, I'm not moderating, not even that. Okay, let's roll back a little bit. Thank you, Cristina da Milano. Thank you, Valentina Nisi. Thank you, Ivo Oosterbeek. And thank you, Inès Martorell, for, well, having told a story about the human aspects related to the deployment and implementation of a project such as MEMEX. So we have seen that, and we will now go to this other session, which is about the app. Let's remember that this is a 2-headed monster. So there is an app that has, no, Alessio, don't take it badly, please. Please. It's no. So it's about how can technology bridge. Can it bridge? How can it do it between, in this case, what we have said, memories and this technology? So I will call Dina Dionisio, the Interactive Institute of Technologies in Lisbon, who will coordinate this session.
Thank you very much, Mercedes. So I'm Dina Dionisio. I'm a research assistant, Interactive Technologies Institute, as you might know. We've been working together for a couple times. So for this session, we will bridge, we'll make this transition from the social aspects of MEMEX and transition it into the more technical parts of the MEMEX. The first session will kick off with my dear colleague, Paul Balla, who will talk more about the designing of the app and how it all processed during this period of time.
Je vais vous raconter l'histoire du tunnel de la gare de Rosa Parks, qui est un passage piéton et une entrée à la gare, accès au quai. Il y avait à cet endroit-là rien. C'était d'ailleurs un terrain vague. Et ils ont construit la gare. Par la suite, un tunnel était prévu et ils ont construit ce tunnel devant la gare. Et je ne comprenais pas. J'ai donc vu le chef de chantier qui m'a dit « Reviens dans 10 jours, tu comprendras ». Et ils avaient creusé sous les voies, étayé. Et cette construction, je n'avais jamais vu autant de ferraille de ma vie. Il me disait d'ailleurs « Bah oui, tu vas voir, ça va sous les voies, ça va tout supporter. » Et le béton, etc. Et un matin, je suis allé assister à l'opération qui consistait à pousser le tunnel qu'ils avaient construit devant, qui moi au départ me disait « Vous êtes planté » alors que non, par 6 vérins, gros vérins, 80 cm de diamètre, et il y en avait 6. Et ces vérins ont poussé le tunnel sous les voies. Chose extraordinaire. Et ben, c'est très important parce que d'une part, il y a une gare, accès à Saint-Lazare en 7 minutes et gare du Nord en 3 minutes. Et puis, très fréquenté d'ailleurs. Et ce passage piéton, autrefois, on devait faire tout le tour par la rue d'Aubervilliers ou par Corentin Cariou, qui était extraordinaire. Voilà. Je fais à peu près le tour.
That's me. Hello. So Valentina has talked a little bit about the design process in the first session and the output that were the personas, scenarios, and requirements. These requirements are organized in minimum viable prototypes, MVP 1, 2, and 3. So MVP 1, the main focus was on the base functionalities for storytelling. MVP 2, the focus was on stories and cultural heritage information connected within a knowledge graph. And MVP3 was focused on the connections between stories manually and the connections between stories and the actual physical places, all within the knowledge graph structure. So each, in practical design terms, each prototype had a design package that included low, mid, and high fidelity prototypes, as well as interactive prototypes that the developers used to make the fully functioning prototypes for each iteration. So each iteration not only looks at the requirements established by the consortium partners, but also by the feedback that participants and stakeholders give to the social partners, and as well as the feedback from the consortium partners in deciding each iteration and how it changes over time. So for the last version of MEMEX, the last iteration, we introduced a new feature on journeys. That was something that was requested by participants from with the social partners, as well as the integration between the MEMEX web app and the MEMEX AR that allows physical exploration of the stories in the actual city. So my next speakers are going to talk a little bit about the implementation of these, the web app and the AR apps.
Thank you, Paulo, for summing up in 2 minutes 3 years of design activities. Now I will give floor to Michael Malaman from Ernst Young, and he will present the 2D app. Thank you, Michael.
Hello, I'm Michael, one of developer of the MEMEX 2D visualization of the app from Milano with love. So I will speak about the measure functionality of the app or the 2D app. So the measure milestone of this app, the creation of this app was the first one, the creation of the story and the visualization of the single stories. The major task was to make the app responsive for the mobile, for the older version. On the second phase of the app, we improved the UX, we improved the performance, and make the app multilingual. On the last step, on the last version of the app, we make the possibility to create a collection of the stories, and we integrate the 2D visualization with the 3D visualization. These are the 4 of the major functionality of the app. We can create and visualize a story where you can create a story, put a image for a cover image, put a lot of content, add some multimedia file, and search on a database for more information related to that story. So another functionality was to join a lot of stories together to make a journey to walk through for the logged user, for the people to join, have a better feeling about the stories of when you walk around the city. Another functionality was the possibility to search a story directly by the title or by the tags associated on the story. The tags was listed on before. It was like human rights, cultural heritage, or similar. So this was a type of search. Last big functionality was the visualization of the connection between stories and cultural heritage. So your story isn't only your stories, but is a pool of information where you can visualize on the map. You can see the line connected similar stories or cultural heritage. Now I will see in detail some these four functionalities. The first one was the creation of a story where you can put the title, cover image, a lot of information, take it from Wikidata, so you can add information, looking for information, add more tags, so the people can find your story more easily. This is the visualization. If another user wants to see your story, can see your story on the web app, onto the app, to the visualization. You can add a media file to the story, so you can add a video to better describe your story. Now I see, okay, when you create a group of stories, or maybe you want to use other people publish the story, you can join it together with the order list is called a journey. So you can create a journey of stories, create a specific description of the story for that journey. So you can make it you can create, make it more it can be a better experience for the user. And this is a visualization of your created journey, where you can go to the place with maps or other mobile phone navigator. This is a visualization of the story on the maps. There is a dots on the map with connection, and they are ordered because in the journey, the order of the story is important. Another functionality was the filter for make it easier to find the story, like find the story by title or by tags. In this case, we try to find all the story with a PLA and find 2 or 3 results. The last major functionality I want to speak about is the connection between stories and cultural heritage, where they are displayed on the maps or in a more simple way, like in plain text. Just a moment. These are the connected stories, and just a moment we'll see anche, and there are the connected heritage on the bottom side. So this was a major functionality. One major functionality maybe was the multilingual app. So the app is multilingual based on which one is connected. I think this is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Now that Michael presents the 2D app, I will give floor to Clemens by NoHo that will present the AR viewing part.
Thank you. So my name is Clemens. I work for NoHo, a creative content studio based in Dublin. And we were doing the augmented reality app, and we start with a little video here of the app in action. Okay, so the app is basically accessed from within the MEMEX web app, which EY has been programming, and it will give you initialization texts in the beginning to say if it's working or not. And once it has connected properly, it will tell you how many augmented reality objects are within your area, and then it will encourage you to look around and explore them. And there's two different types of objects you can find. So you've got the cultural heritage objects, which are marked by the red and green icons, and you have the story icons, which are marked by the black and blue ones. And then once you tap them, you'll get further information on these. So it will fold out a list of connections all around the main interface. The main icon will tell you a brief overview of the cultural heritage item in the bottom section. And if you want to read more, you can click on the link and it will bring you further information on that. Or you can explore the connections by clicking on one of these icons, and it will show you the type of connection, what it's connected to. And you can also read up more on those sections here. Now, all these informations are directly downloaded from the knowledge graph, and you can read more on the source by clicking on read more. And in that case, for cultural heritage, it will bring you to Wikidata entry where you can read up on. The same goes for the stories. Now, the difference is the story is brought up directly from the AR app in the MEMEX web app. So sorry, the MEMEX web app is brought up in the AR app. So you can see the exact same story with all the rich media attached to it. So all the video, audio, and photos are still there. And you can look at them in the same way as you've been doing on the 2D web app. And when you go back, you're back in the AR view, and you can also explore the connections that story has in the same way a cultural heritage item has connections. And again, if you click on read more, you will get to the knowledge graph source, and it will bring you there. Or if it's connected to another story, it will bring you to that story. And that's basically the big overview. So you can go back to the web app, which is they're communicating to each other with a special deep link connection, so that we can pass on information. And you have the notification area on top, which gives you critical information whether the app is working or not. And underneath it, you see the different icons for stories or cultural heritage icons and their connection. And from the bottom, you get the text overview and the option to read more. And that is the basic concept of the app. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I will give floor to our coordinator, Alessio, who will explain the AR creator part. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Clemens, for showing the augmented reality viewing app. It looks great. It looks simple, but actually is Actually, there is a lot of work to make it happen, and my role is to convince you that really we did the work a lot. So creating an AR experience, it's something that at the moment is done pretty much by companies that go in a place and set up your, let's say, experience. You have to call them, set up, then and makes all the system works in rechecking quite pretty much over the time. Or you are a large tech company that can, of course, with these resources, try to promote some technology that can be, let's say, easily used on their services, of course. But MEMEX is a research project and is a project at the service. And we would like to, of everyone, at the service of everyone, and we would like to create tools that can be used by everyone. This is our main difference. And one key aspect, as I told you in my initial presentation, is to link from a map that can be 2D to the real physical objects that are displayed on your mobile screen. And this looks simple to see, as I said, but it requires a bit of extensive technology to create. So our aim is really to have this system that can display these little icons you've seen from Clement's presentation on objects that are widespread in the world, not only in the pilot area for which we had the stories, but thinking that MEMEX can go beyond this. It can be in Italy or in United States or other parts of Italy and in other heritage. So the idea is, of course, one option is to localize for AR where the person is, because we need to know what the phone is looking at, but also to associate from the image we see on the screen, the digital object that exists. So this is called the self-localization technology, which is something that is already available on the major phone. But the thing we wanted to do is to localize what we created with MEMEX, the stories and the cultural heritage assets around the world. So to create the icons that are specifically linked or glued to these physical objects, you have to localize in 3 dimensions, both the person and the phone itself. And we did it by creating this app, another app, which is called a Creator, to do the setup of augmented reality from users that are not too touch savvy. Okay, of course, here at this level, you need some, let's say, knowledge about how to use a phone and some, let's say, training on using the app, but this is far simpler than you would normally be able to do with augmented reality. So in principle, the way to create these AR spaces that show the stories in the world is to create what is called an anchor by tapping on the screen. That is a physical landmark that the phone can recognize to reorient yourself. Is the same things you do when you're trying to find your position in a place. You're trying to find common elements in the area. And then you can, for instance, if you are interested in that elephant, which is just in front of Rosa Park in Paris, and you want to tell a story about it, you can take of course, anchoring, and you can take 3 images from different views of the object, and the system automatically find in this 3D space the object itself. From that, you can by tapping again. So here we are talking just tapping on the phone like normally you do with many of the apps you're using. You're trying to link the digital information that we are using. It can be a story, it can be a description on Wikidata, Wikipedia about that object directly on the representation we are here. And this is associated to the physical landmark, which is the elephant, the digital information, just by tapping. We had also other modalities where we make the system work automatically. This is still experimenting about it, but we take a video around the area and we essentially localize automatically the objects in an area, and we can then tap on the objects itself in 3D to associate the digital information. And we essentially would like to scale this at large. And you can understand, if you would like to have this application working worldwide, there are many issues you have to solve. So for the moment, we have augmented many places in the pilots area, for which we have tested together with the participants the augmented reality. As you see in the previous video, we know where a participant was really checking his story using augmented reality. And the last thing we were thinking, of course, to create these augmented reality spaces, you have to go physically in the place you would like to augment. We researched in the project, this is one of the last efforts, a way to create these augmented reality spaces just being sit at home from your computer, like you put information on a map, like with OpenStreetMaps or other type of database. We would like to stay at home and create augmented reality spaces and then go there from remotely and go there physically and to see them. So we worked together with the CNRS to create a way to choose an object, localizing on a map, and trying to link this in order to create an AR experience. And how we do this? We went to map the areas with the device that the CNRS created, that has several cameras. You can take images around the area, and you can take some snapshot of the images from your home and click on them, or these objects, like this column, in 4 different views, and then localize localize in 3 dimensions the object where it is. And at the same way we were doing before, after being localized, you can assign the information. It could be a story or digital information through Wikipedia and Wikimedia about the cultural heritage, artifact, or story we wanted to visualize. At the end, this generation works. It seems too nice to say that it works like this, but it is in principle. So we can make this app working even not being physically in the place, which sometimes is pretty useful. For instance, for the problem we got during the pandemic. So to conclude a bit about these 2 new apps that are on top of the app that No showed, but the app No showed can be used without any problem, just by going into the place and starting up the app and looking around and find the cultural heritage assets or the story. In this case, we developed 2 apps, one for creating the augmented reality space by being in the space, and one for the offline augmented reality creation from your very home where you're staying. And I guess this concludes my presentation on the augmented reality part, and I leave the word to the next speakers and final speakers for this session.
Thank you, Alessio. Thank you all to my colleagues who just presented the tech side of things, but none of these tools would be possible, of course, without the help of the communities while they were testing and basically valuing what we were trying to develop the best way that we could. From the design perspective until the implementation parts. So from our side, I would like to give you just an overall from the insights of the community participants with the tools that they valued a lot, the cross-community access. So being able to see stories from each pilot, then valuing the geolocalization of the stories and the cultural heritage. Also the multiple and different perspectives of the different pilots. In the more technical parts, the multimedia support, being able to create videos, write their stories, do these audios. It was very helpful for them to express their insights. And also they valued the clean design. I couldn't just leave this feedback because it was also our part. And also, of course, there's always some improvements to do related to the connections. And they also supported on adding more features. They wanted more features to the app, messages, and also, of course, there are some complaints, but it's always part of the process. And I would like to leave this quote from one of our participants that I think it's really about what the project and their perspective with MEMEX is. It's a way to valorize people's memories and as the neighborhood's memory. It's an interesting tool that puts humans at the center. Now I'll give floor to Cristina, talking more about the relationship with the social sides of the MEMEX.
Thank you. No, yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you, Dina. Yes, you have seen we have chosen to use the verb to value for this wrap-up session, because basically it's all about values. Values that people attribute to cultural heritage and values that can be attributed to the role of technology in fostering access and participation to cultural heritage. So we thought it would have been appropriate to keep on repeating the verb to value. And actually on the other side of the column, you see some other ways of valuing what has been done. First of all, well, valuing the assessment of communities' technological needs. We have heard today quite often the expression tech savvy, tech savviness. That was a problem to a certain extent within MEMEX, because we were facing the fact that, well, some of these groups were not tech savvy and had problems in using the technology, even the app. I mean, we are overwhelmed by app, but still we have to consider that there are groups, fragile groups in these cases, which are not using technology, or at least this kind of technology, in a very savvy way. So the assessment of the technological needs is something that has to be considered and has to be valued. The second point, which is related to the first one actually, is the active engagement of those communities in the design of the tool. Again, we have heard from Valentina at the very beginning of this afternoon how important it was during the first field study, then the subsequent process of co-creation of, well, not of the tool itself, but of a process that could have led to the implementation of the tool. Working with fragile communities means engaging them from the very beginning due to the problems about tech savviness that were mentioned before. So the active engagement of them, not only in creating the stories, which was the easiest, well, not really, but let's say the more obvious part of it, but also engaging them in the creation of the tool. So that's another point that we think might be important to underline. The third one is, well, they are all related in a way, to assess, to consider in a project like this and in possible future projects, taking together or working together with the technological and the social soul of the project itself, taking into account the expected results, which to a great extent were the ones that we were actually expecting to have, but also the unexpected ones that we were facing throughout the life of the project, and which are, to me, equally interesting I would say maybe more interesting if we want to go on, and I mean, considering that this was a research project. So in terms of research, the unexpected outcomes were promising, let's say. The issue of the tech savviness, the issue of the engagement of the communities from the very beginning, also in the design of the app and so on. And then last but not least, we think it is very important to take into consideration, to value the different dimensions related to sustainability. Sustainability, which is a very, let's say, important word nowadays. It's a sort of magic word again, but it is important to consider it not only from a social and cultural point of view, which has been in a way already presented by Ivo and Inès when they were talking about the pilot projects, but also from the technological point of view, again, the tech savvy issue, from the environmental point of view, because there are issues related to environmental sustainability when we talk about technology. And I would keep it at last, the economic dimension of all this, because of course there is an issue related to economic costs of technology, but I think it has to be considered together with the other three dimensions I just mentioned. So this is, well, the end of this wrap-up session. Thank you, Dina, for sharing that with me. I'll give the floor again to Mercedes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina Dionisio, Paolo Bala, Michael Malaman, and Clemens Kubecki, and of course, Alessio Del Bue for the session, and to Dina and to Cristina for the wrap up. We're going to break. Yes, it's hot in the room. We're going to break for a break, yes. But before breaking up for the break, and because we've been so good at timekeeping, thank you. Let me take 2 minutes of your time. MEMEX is a project, yes, but it's a story in itself. MEMEX has also been a process as MEMEX. It tells a story in itself. It is made up of a community of very diverse professionals, organizations, also coming from different countries, cities, etc. We're all speaking English today, but I would bet my right hand that it's the native language of very few people in this room. So that's been also part of, the learning process amongst all of us. But it is a story in itself, and it is above all something that we said amongst ourselves yesterday afternoon when we had, under the coordination of Alessio, an evaluation session of these 3 years. And most of us said that we have sometimes felt that we have lost track, that this is a research project. This is a project funded by the European Union under its H2020 Research and Innovation Program. It has to be said, it's thanks to EU funding that we have been able to do this work. But it has been, above all, about researching. It has been about understanding better through, if you allow me the term, applied research, what us, the social cultural partners, can do with fragile, vulnerable communities in diverse contexts, in different cities, working with them, not as beneficiaries, but as active participants in the development of development of very specific cultural methodologies, as we have said, digital storytelling in this case, mostly geared towards audience development and engagement. Behind all of this, there is the idea that access is a right indeed, but that participation is paramount to empower citizens and to make them active elements of the society in which they live. On the other hand, we have researched, not us, the others, the other partners have researched how can technology produce in this case, prototype that we have seen on screen, but that you can also see outside, how technology can, in an easy, understandable, accessible also format, be used to support policy objectives, in this case of social inclusion, as we have said, through fruition of cultural heritage. So that has been also about researching. And the story ends with MEMEX being about different people talking together and understanding each other, coming from these very diverse and different horizons, professional horizons, with, as we said yesterday, questions about terminology, vocabulary. We have heard about how could we arrive to a shared understanding of this or that. And we have had the need to listen to each other and make the effort to understand each other, to move together towards what I hope we have been able to show you today, which is this process. We have used this word again and again this afternoon, leading us to answering in our humble and modest way the annunciation that we had responded to when we prepared the project proposal under the leadership of IIT. Is technology a tool that can be used in a positive, constructive way to foster social inclusion through the fruition of cultural heritage? We hope in the name of the consortium that we have, given an overview of what we have done these 3 years. We will now break for a coffee break. Yes, sorry. Are there any questions? I think we're all tired or no, go on. Are there questions? We might have questions from people online. I'm very obedient. They tell me that I have to ask questions. I ask if there are questions. Sorry, they tell me that I have to ask whether there are questions. I ask whether there are questions. Are there any questions, people out there? We all want coffee, right? We all want. Okay, so coffee break. Now, before I was interrupted, I wanted to tell us all, please convene back here at 22, because we have to start sharp at 1:45 in respect of those that are online with us today, in particular for the last hybrid session.
To advise the people online that we will close the Zoom for 15 minutes and we go back to order.
Okay, so I'm. No, don't mix me up, please. So, okay, recap. We break for coffee. We want you back at 22. Yes, because the session starts at 5:45. Okay, we have people online. We are now going to break off the communication with those of you who are online for 15 minutes and open the session again in 15 minutes time. We will start sharp at 5:45. I repeat, okay? So let's be diligent and be back in time. Thank you. Enjoy the coffee break. The focus is here. So you So if I stand up, but they will be on the screen. So if I stand here, I'll be able to see them. Jordi, that's fine. Should sit. And I could move it about. Yes. Well, India, unfortunately, doesn't have other. No, it's because you're being around.
The view of the camera is the best view of the camera is one. So the best option is the one. Wherever the best view from. You don't want to. No, I'm asking. No, you can see. You can see the and after. But the most important is that you can see if they are. Yes. Yes. Only one person so it's me the rest will be camera cover like
Don't believe this.
the best place is here. One here and here. Or that. For me, yeah. I'm sorry. But you will still see me. Yes. Okay.
Grazie.
Little window. And for the people that is in the webinar, they will see you fine. Yes, in this case, we don't have a PowerPoint. This is a foundation PowerPoint. So nobody has a PowerPoint. We need to see the moderators and the speakers from Zoom. Because we have 3 or 4 speakers from Zoom. We are 2 by European Union, 2. European Union. Yes, about 1 and 1. The project manager was so 2. No, but it's from no, I'm confused. Wait, we have Tanya? No, 1. No, Tanya, yes. For the camera? Tanya is sick, but you, yes, yeah. But from European Union, Stefano, yes, and 3 from the Union. Yes, but 1 of the 3 European Union, 1 can't. Okay, I just received the information from us. Okay.
For the camera, no. For the camera, the best place is this because people
sit down here. I will see here the people on the screen. I see you see me too.
Yes.
No, I think for people and for the camera is see you better. There because there are some 2 persons with 2 persons. Yes, 2 and you want to move. Yes, 1 and 1. For me, the more and we can see and we can see them. Milano, no. Okay. There's somebody say, but Milano, but not relevant. Okay. So 5 people on the screen. Okay, we go to drink a coffee. Sí, nosotros estuvimos en la mañana visitando Barcelona. El Sensi, se llama. Una paracopa que no la este dispositivo que lo estuvimos hoy en la mañana, está muy padre. Dice sí, ahí el titulado de las calles y ahí la pista de la bicicleta. Sí, sí, sí. ¿Cómo era? Entrando a un sitio. Era una opción que estaba oculta en la pestaña de porque ponía. Lo estaba vigilando por sitios, pero los asistentes no podían hablar. Porque había una opción que ponía, pero los asistentes no pueden hablar con nadie. Era una opción súper
veramente manco. Mi devono spiti dalla cosa che non mi hanno domato, che oggi non sto privata camera, che ho un tecnica, non so se Zorayım kapısı yok yani. Gerek falan var tabii.
Λοιπόν, κάτσε να σκεφτώ τι θα τους πω τώρα αυτούς.
Πώς πού να σκεφτείς, εγώ θα πρέπει να πάρω και εγώ. Αν αυτό είναι, όχι ρε γαμώ, αυτός έφυγε. Όχι, μπορώ.
Τι να τους πω. Έχει γράψει ένα brief στο Χάραλ κάποτε. Το οποίο που είναι το Μάρτι έχει μιλήσει κάπου.
Hello, Rodrigo. Yes, you can. Okay, bye.
Λοιπόν, κάτσε λίγο. Αυτό. Δεν θα πω αυτά. Θα πω ότι το project σας είναι άρα σημαντικό. Εμπίπτει. Πώς είναι εμπίπτω στα αγγλικά.
Can you hear me? The people online, can you hear me?
Hello.
Chicos, ¿podemos abrir que aparezcan online los ponentes, por favor? Hi, everybody. Hi, speaker online. Antonio Gucciardo speaking. We needed to do a brief test. Okay. Hi, Tanya.
I'm just wondering that I'm Viviana Pavon. Who is Viviana?
Yes,
Pavon?
Tanya, can you change the name if you want? You can change the name.
Okay, I will.
I don't know why you have this. Okay, thank you very much, Tanya. Now, okay, you are welcome. How are you?
I'm better, thank you.
Okay. Hi, Mikhail. Welcome.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Nice to meet
Yeah.
you. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
fantastic. Okay, welcome. Thank you very much. Stay with us. Stefanos. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, very well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Stay with us. In 5 minutes, we are with you. Okay. Thank you so much. Everything worked very well. Okay. The connection is perfect. Thank you. See you in a couple of minutes.
Okay, see you now.
Hello? Hello, hello, hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay, fantastic. So we can see Mikhail and Tanya in this moment, but please, Maria Chiara, can we check with you? Okay, Maria Chiara is appeared now. Okay, ciao, Maria Chiara.
Hi.
And also Fulgencio. I don't know if it's available. Okay, hi, Fulgencio, nice to meet you. Hi, welcome, thank you very much. Okay, Stefanos is here too. Yes, we know. Okay, so we are everybody. Fantastic, thank you very much. Okay, so we started with the story online, a little video, and after we started with the section. Okay, thank you very much. Everything worked well. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. We're back. Perfect timing. Thank you so much for being all so disciplined. We're going to start the final session of this final event. As you will recall, it is going to be about community inclusion through cultural resources and technology, a conversation with a series of people that we welcome online and here. Here with us, we have Jordi Pasqual, Committee on Culture, United Cities and Local Governments, and our moderator, Yamam Al-Zubaidi. And online, we have from the European Commission, Fulgencio San Martin, who is from DG Connect, Community Networks, Technology, etc. Maria Clara Esposito from DG EAC, Education and Culture, and Mikhail Moskovakos from DG RTD, Research and Innovation. Thank you to the European Commission for being with us online this afternoon, but also thank you to our further participant expert speaker, Tanya Adam, a journalist. She lives here in Barcelona, but unfortunately she is sick, and that is the reason why she's not here, but she is with us online. So thank you very much, Tanya, for being with us this afternoon. Before giving the floor to Yamam, we're going to see the third and last story. We have seen a story from Barcelona, a story from Paris, and now we will see one from Lisbon. Let me entertain you. I can't. No, it doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. I cannot put the video on. Thank you. It's like, you know, okay, there it goes. Thank you.
No âmbito do projeto MEMEX, foi organizada uma visita no Museu de Farmácia, em Lisboa. O museu fica em frente do Miradouro da Santa Catarina, um lugar lindo que atira muitos turistas e onde o preço de uma imperial reflete a sua popularidade. O Museu da Farmácia é bastante recente. Foi inaugurado em 1996 e visa conservar a história da farmácia mundial. Aqui é possível ver reconstruções de autênticas farmácias portuguesas e de outros países, desde o final do século XV até os nossos dias. Além disso, o museu tem muitas ferramentas, ampolas e objetos sagrados do mundo antigo, de várias origens geográficas. Passeando entre os expositores, tirei o meu caderninho da mala, a minha caneta preta ponta fina e comecei a desenhar. Cada objeto que eu reportei no papel representava uma maneira das mulheres e dos homens de lidarem com doenças, quer de maneira boticária, por exemplo, uma ampula porta-medicamentos, quer de maneira mais metafísica, por exemplo, uma estátua votiva. O meu grupo avançou na visita. Eu fiquei atrás. Estava a estudar as linhas incrustadas de uma caixa para instrumentos cirúrgicos do Tibete do século XVIII, a tentar reconstruir na minha cabeça as técnicas de olaria utilizadas para criar um balsamário na ilha de Rhodes no século VI a.C., quando de repente fui atingida por uma lembrança farmacêutica, por assim dizer. A minha avó é uma bruxa. Há inúmeros eventos que aconteceram que poderiam reforçar esta afirmação, mas, para efeito desta história, é só preciso saber que ela tem um conhecimento muito amplo sobre as plantas e os poderes delas. Uma dessas plantas é o hipérico, cujo nome científico é Hipericum perforatum, mas ela é mais conhecida como erva de São João, porque floresce no final de junho. O óleo, derivado das flores, tem propriedades curativas contra a depressão e pode também ajudar no tratamento de queimaduras e hematomas. Por isso, o óleo de hipérico acompanhou a minha infância. Felizmente, mais por causa de quedas e contato com chamas do que contra a tristeza existencial. E há poucos anos até consegui fazer o meu próprio óleo, com flores colhidas num campo do Alentejo. Liguei à minha avó e segui as instruções que ela me deu. Informações confidenciais, sinto muito. Isto fez-me sentir ainda mais ligada a ela, mesmo se eu estava em Lisboa e ela na Itália. Naquele momento éramos duas bruxas criadoras de poções com ervas misteriosas e a distância entre nós duas diminuiu, magicamente.
Thank you very much. Let's go on to the session. And please, from down there, share the screen with all our online speakers. Thank you. Yamam, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me now? Is it working? Okay. Okay. So when I got in touch with the team of MEMEX, I immediately had the feeling that the MEMEX project is much more about the processes behind producing the app rather than the app itself as such, even if the final product is still important. And that was kind of a confirmed during the first two sessions today. So this conversation, or the aim of this conversation, is try to get closer to those complicated, challenging concepts such as marginalized communities, cultural heritage, co-production, cooperation, and inclusion. And we will try to speak to the three experts that we have with us and discuss those issues from different perspectives. And then again, we're very grateful for the Commission for having three persons actually from the European Commission who were willing to take participation today. And at the end of the session, give us an update on the policy development on the European level. That said, I would like to start maybe with Stefanos, if I may. Do you hear me?
Yes, please.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, you are a professor of computer science, so you basically come from the tech side. And what we've witnessed during the discussions today, a recurring issue of societal readiness as something that mirrors the technological readiness. I mean, we know the technological readiness is about making sure that the technology itself is mature enough to be launched in a broader context. How do you see the issue of societal readiness? How important it is? And is it given enough attention from a broader perspective, maybe from a policy side? Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today, and thanks very much, MEMEX, for inviting me. In fact, I have been in the advisory board of MEMEX the last year, so I had the chance to see how MEMEX was progressing some months ago in Lisbon. And so I now have a view of what is being produced, has been produced. And let me try to point out some issues that you already mentioned that I think are interesting to be considered at a higher level, at the policy level. And this have to do with bringing the technology side closer to the social, educational, and cultural side. So I think that we all know that the last few years technology is progressing rapidly. We are producing more environments. We now know that the Commission is trying to set up all this cloud for providing services to the cultural sector. We know that the member states are producing a lot of policies related to digital transformation strategies, to AI strategies.
And all this always target, of course, the people. And specifically in the cultural domain, where we target social inclusion, we target co-creation, as you mentioned, we target creativity, and all this, we need really to be able to blend what technology can produce in this producing, to blend this with the abilities of people with different cultures, with different abilities, to take advantage of it, but also possess what they can, not necessarily having knowledge of everything is there, but mainly being able to effectively use what is there and produce produce new knowledge, new creation, so on. So I think here is an issue that I think it was raised in MEMEX. That means how we blend TRL with SRL, that means social readiness levels. I think it is not, while TRL has already been defined in the framework of evaluation of projects or what we expect from projects at the Commission European level, still the social readiness level, it's not very well defined. So because it depends very much on the context of interaction, the context of on the ability or capabilities of people to use technology, to produce based on technology. And I think this is an issue that has been raised by MEMEX. MEMEX included from the technology side a lot of the technologies we now have in our hands. That means we have augmented reality, we have AI, we have knowledge graphs, we have machine learning. And so we know that all these technologies are continuously producing more data, more capabilities for the people, the experts, or the users of, or the people we wanted to involve in this event to use. On the other side, we know that also MEMEX focused a bit on capacity building. And I think this is the other side that we know that lifelong learning combined with all the training issues related, targeting, reskilling, upskilling at member states level is something that is happening today. And we really needed to see how this touches all the cultural and educational sector and the various communities that are rather marginalized, they don't have the abilities or the digital skills necessary for getting into and taking advantage of this. And I think there we really need to work a lot with such communities. And I think MEMEX has tried to do that. That means they had defined 3 pilots in different countries with different target groups. And the target has been to involve the users there in this fight for the best. So I think we are there. I don't know how far you would like me to go, but I think we are at a point now at the policy level where the Commission, with all the abilities they have to produce new calls and all, either on the technology or on the social side or the combined, they have to work with the member states. For example, I know that I can tell you that in Greece, where I am leading, I'm a chairman of the national, it's called GRNet, it's in the National Infrastructure for Research and Technology. We have also an academy of learning involved with us that the Ministry has asked us to define this. And so what we do is these people try to go, for example, to elderly people where they gather. For example, we have some centers that elderly people gather, and so we use digital assistants and that try to involve them with some technological issues that they can use what, for example, GovGR now. So I think all this is something we need to blend across the field and do it at the European level. I think I said enough, so maybe I stop here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Stefanos. But is it fair to summarize your position is that social readiness is just as important as the technological readiness in the kind of projects where we're involving specifically marginalized communities because the situation is complex? Which basically turns me to allow me to go to Tanya. Tanya, when we connected yesterday, you told me all these things are so complicated. You know, who is a marginalized community? How do we approach them? What is a cultural heritage? But those issues is just as important as the technological side of that kind of project. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the complexity, because it seems that it has a central value for this kind of projects? I think you are muted, Tanya.
Yes, I'm muted. Sorry.
Yeah, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you all, and thank you, MEMEX. And it was impossible to be here with you, but I have to say to you, Jamama, I'm still thinking about our conversation yesterday, because for me, it's so complicated to, you know, to concrete a policy with all this complexity, you know. And finally I write some words because it's easier to me, because it's not, I don't usually speak in English, and finally I prefer.
We already mentioned that there are a few of us in this room who has actually English as a first language, so please.
And the thing,
no worries.
It's so complicated at the same point. And then I think it's what I feel. I want to speak about feelings. I want to speak about knowledge. I want to speak about the things that I feel when I see MEMEX project. And what I feel is very far away from me in some points. It's far away from my reality. I live and I work in the faraway world in some point. I think we speak different languages. I think of myself as one of those people who took part of the project. And I think after participating, what happens? What does my life change beyond the fact that someone has become interested in my story? After seeing all professional work you have done, I wonder how it all comes back to the people. I would like to share with you my great difficulty to grounding and understanding how link technology and cultural heritage. The idea of cultural heritage of diasporas is very controversial for me. Perhaps I will be more comfortable talking about experiences, memories, and recollections. And just everything raises questions for me. What does storytelling really bring to the people? How does it change the lives of marginalized people? Does it make them take another place in society? If this is a cultural product, this MEMEX, what you are doing, who is the consumer and how are the creator protected? The creator maybe is the person, the people, the community. Is they protected or not? I think folklorization, instrumentalization, inferiorization, stereotypes, and prejudice must be assessed when we talk about diaspora's cultural heritages. How to put the cultural heritages of migrants when they have been crushed by decades by West? When I arrived in Europe, I thought that everything that conformed to me was inferior. It was not at school or at university that I came to the opposite conclusion, nor was it at home, where although we were proud of our African roots, in somehow we thought that they were inferior than European ones. I imagine myself 20 years ago sharing narratives, and I think I will be ashamed today because they were incomplete narratives. So who really cares about me? Who really cares about my narratives? This enormous work called decolonization by someone I have done in an almost in a soft thought. However, those were another times. Now, many of migrant people and communities are revalorizing themselves. They working under other terms and grammars. In any case, I have more questions. Everything of MEMEX give me questions and questions. I think it's interesting because the idea of these different worlds, the worlds of the marginalized people, the worlds of migrant people, the worlds of diaspora people, who can connect really with the needs of the project, no? These questions is, what is the part of cultural heritage and how is it valued? Who takes care of this heritage outside of their countries? How do orality experiences and testimony play in the swampy territory of cultural heritage? What place do colonization, slavery occupy in the swampy territory of cultural heritage? Living memory is another value to take into account. But first, should this knowledge not be systematized in the same way as European knowledge has been systematized? Who systematized the migrant cultural heritage, so diverse and incomprehensible? Who patrimonialized the hybridization of migrants' cultural heritage? What is the place of the thinkers who protect these cultures? If no one systematizes the cultural heritage, it will be a set and connect ideas ready to be eating bad stereotypes. And lastly, I would like to invite you to reflect on terms such community, social inclusion, second and third generation of migrants, because in some point they are citizens. I believe that complexity of the present demands another grammars that respond to the needs of the citizenship movement. This is some reflections in some point that I want to share. I don't know if that responds the Jamam what we are talking yesterday, but I really think that I'm trying to put in the skin of these people. And I try to there is a voice that needs help inside and needs help maybe in another ways.
Thank you very much, Tanya. These questions are indeed very, very well. Thank you for sharing those ideas with us, but it's also very, very important questions because they're coming both from your, as far as I understand, your personal experience, but also your professional experience. So there is a double value there. Jordi, I'm not going to ask you to reply to those questions because no, you want to reply to those questions if you wish. No, I think they're quite complicated. Of course, you're welcome to comment on them. But the picture is that I'm starting to see here is that if we're employing technology to include people in defining and redefining what's our common good, what's our common cultural heritage, it seems to be that maybe I'm going too far with this idea a little bit, but for me, it seems that the human part is much more important than the technological part itself. The people from the tech side are not going to like that, I know. But the processes in addressing people, in approaching marginalized communities, in communicating with them, I think from the last session we had the complexity of the processes on how to approach the marginalized community, how to actually de facto include them in the decision-making and co-creation of the whatever we're doing. In this case, it was the app. From your position, from where you are, do you see that local governments, regional governments are close to their communities? Do they see the potential of that?
Good question. Can you hear me? Can you confirm at the back of the no? You're not.
No. Maybe this one.
Thank you. Gracias. I will try to answer your questions. You say if say, the conversation on local cultural policies and the place of heritage in those conversations, and the central role for technology, what I think about the central role of technology. And my answer is, cannot we use cutting edge technology to include everybody in the cultural conversation in a place? I mean, when almost everybody has this smartphone and therefore a huge capacity to interact, can the cultural organizations ignore this potential? The answer is no. And your second question is a bit more challenging because it is more related to power. It is more related for who creates the frame. And unfortunately, the frame we are living has been created by the end of the 90s by corporations in the United States. Let me be clear on that. And it is not a democratic frame. And the answer to your question is how on earth we can imagine a technological frame that does not put people at the center. I mean, what's the alternative? And of course, this has to do with power. Who is the owner of the frame? And the debate this last 2 weeks, since Elon Musk is the owner of Twitter, and this narrative on the central square of the global conversation. Okay, if you don't have a team in charge of human rights, how on earth are you going to put people at the center? So from the perspective of cities and local governments, the answer to these questions is we cannot ignore technology. Technology needs to be at the center of cultural policies, yes or yes, especially if we want to involve young people. Sometimes here in the city, in Barcelona, I wonder how some programs seem to be designed to serve a narrow fraction of the society, and certainly not those young people equipped with mobile phones.
Technology in their hands, yeah.
And the answer to the question on people at the center, yes, obviously, yes.
But a background to the question is that we often, at least this is my feeling on the EU, within the EU, we tend to say, what is the Commission doing? Where is the policy development? And we have the Commission with us, and we're going to hear the updates on the policy development. But at the end of the day, the citizen is those in power who are closer to the citizen actually are the local government. Is there a realization of the need to put the people in center in creating a common understanding of our common cultural heritage? If you have any knowledge of that, I may understand it's difficult to answer.
No, of course. At least this is the narrative that we defend in United Cities and local governments. So, some cities may be not following because of political choices of national governments that sometimes in some countries appoint mayors that are not responsible or accountable to citizens. This is existing sometimes. And also cities and local governments that after elections decide that they defend other interests, let's put it this way. In the preparation, because I feel, Tanya, I feel a little bit like you. I do not belong to this circle of technology, and these questions are very difficult.
Me neither.
But it's I went through the key messages to policymakers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I added a 9. But don't worry, I'm not going to go through these 9 points. Don't panic. But
and that's policy brief number 1, only number 1.
That's policy brief number 1.
Okay.
I had, with my respects, I had enough with policy brief 1. because it's very dense. Now I understand policy brief 2 and 3. I read them all. I like them. We are going to include this in our reflection. We need in UCLG Culture Committee, we need to address more the technological, say, challenge. But we feel very close to all these 9 points. Flexibility is very close to the concept of circular culture that Izmir, one of our most active members, is promoting. Circular culture, harmony with the past, the nature, the other, and change, harmony with change. And of course, Izmir is saying this, sending this message to the world from very specific place, the Turkish coast. So process as a core component. The very definition of culture, according to us, is dynamic. If there is something in culture, is constant change, constant adaptation to challenges, to people, to evolving relations with nature. Sustainable development goals. We don't have a culture goal. It's difficult to intervene in this debate when the key elements of our consideration, heritage, creativity, diversity, critical knowledge, are not inside the Charter for Global Development. Cultural rights, this is what we have been promoting since 2004. Transsectorial approach. If you talk about cultural rights, you need to relate cultural rights to economic, social, civic, and political rights, because the interdependence of rights is a must. And therefore, cultural organizations that defend a cultural rights approach to their own programs, they need to move and to leave the comfort zone of serving those that are illustrated. I am simplifying, but you know what I mean. Global approach for organization. I am today in Interarts, and let me quote the founder of Interarts, Eduardo Delgado, who disguised the ecologist motto, think global, act local. And he said, think local, act global. Also, I think this is a very 21st century motto. And joining Tanya, she didn't mention exactly this, but decolonize. Just decolonize cultural policies, decolonize cultural organizations, be aware that this is a 21st century debate. The sooner the cultural organizations embrace this debate, the better for everybody, for citizens in a place, for national governments that are still in the narratives of, say, proud, etc., cultural identity, all this. The example of the Antwerp Museum of Fine Arts, they went through a deep analysis of each one of the pieces, and they scrutinized if there is something in their history related to colonial times. Yeah. Why not? Why should not we do the same? So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, no, that's very, very, very insightful. Thank you very much. So up until now, as far as I understand the conversation, is that we do agree on the fact that social readiness is extremely important. We need to put, even when we work with technology, we need to put people at the center, just as MEMEX. And I would like to say, I don't see MEMEX as a project. For me, MEMEX is an experience, as was done by the MEMEX experience. And from the perspective of marginalized communities, what the questions that Tanya raised are central to that kind of interaction, and there is an understanding for that, and already in by local and regional communities, governments. Sorry. Let's see if all these ambitions we have on those insights, if they're kind of replicated in the policy development. So let me go to our guest from the Commission, who kindly stayed as long and listened to us and willing to update us on the policy development. So I'm not asking you to answer specifically on our ambitions when it comes to flexibility, when it comes to dynamic processes and so on, but what is going on the policy side at the European level? Maria Chiara, would you like to start from your position? What's going on now and what's in the pipeline? An update, please.
Sure.
The floor is yours.
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much for this very rich discussion and inputs that I have been following with a lot of interest. Indeed, I think there are a lot of inspirations, and in particular, a lot of aspects that are mirroring what is going on at the level of policy developments at the moment, and also very much in view of the next months and the coming years. First of all, there are key concepts of what you have been discussing, such as putting humans at the center, sustainability from different perspectives in cultural heritage approaches, community building, inclusion, all these notions that are on one side very pertinent to our policy framework, which is the one in where we have been operating until now, mainly the work plan for, can you hear me well? Yeah, okay. The context in which we have been operating is mainly the work plan for culture 2019-2023, which has put at the core of its priorities cultural heritage, both from the perspective of sustainability of the sector, which has been also a focus, an increased focus after the pandemic, of course, and the contribution of the sector towards sustainable development. So I would say that these are two sides of the coin to reinforce the idea and all the policies that have tried to drive the awareness of cultural communities and of policymakers towards embracing cultural heritage, not just as an asset to promote and to compensate the lack of growth and income that was in particular the outcome of the recent years for the closure and everything that we have experienced in the difficulties of the sector, but most of all for driving a process towards innovation in the coming years, and to look at the developments that are now very, very well known in the realm of projects that, like MEMEX, have analyzed technological developments and research, both from the technical perspective and the social one. And this is reflected also in a number of funding schemes and programs that we have set up during this latest years in the framework of this work plan, but also in the framework of the new programming period 2021-2027. I'm thinking of the new Creative Europe, the new Horizon Europe that has a cluster dedicated to cultural heritage and creative industries, a new mobility scheme for artists and cultural professionals that is part of the latest calls launched under the last year of Creative Europe, and that will be reinforced in the coming years of the next work programs, as well as a very important initiative that is very cross-cutting about all the aspects that range from sustainability to inclusion, and to leveraging the potential of cultural heritage, which is the NAB initiative, the New European Bauhaus that you have probably heard about, and on which I am sure that many communities, in particular at local, regional, and national level, are working, combining research aspects, because the NAB is also part of the topics that have been funded under Horizon Europe, but combining this research aspect with the policy aspect that is lying in the capacity. So again, another important message of MEMEX, the capacity building that can be created by this cooperation among the different stakeholders that were involved in such project, where indeed capacity building means also new ways of cooperating between disciplines, between communities, and between experts from different expertise. So these is really at the core of the development and of the awareness of the Commission in responding to cultural needs, but also to needs for adapting big challenges and key priorities such as the Green Deal and the fight against climate change in the coming years, taking into account the evidence that has been provided in the recent years also by many funded projects about the contribution of culture horizontally to sustainability in different dimensions, the economic, the social, and the environmental one. So I would say that the link between the current scenario and the upcoming one can be looked at through the angle of the next version, the next edition of the work plan for culture that will be approved this month on the 29th of November, and that will give the framework of the continuity with the current priorities, but in view of more resilience and more capacity building for the sector and from the sector to work together with the other communities that are committed and engaged in this evidence where inclusion, culture, and sustainability are somehow key aspects of many different policy areas that can work together and can use also the research that projects like yours are able to develop and to come up with new findings, to exchange and cross-fertilize the outcomes, and to have common targets that put sustainability, let's say, in synergy at the center of different policy developments. So I think that many of the objectives that we will see for culture in the new work plan for culture around this key priority of inclusion and sustainability will also mirror many developments that other policies will try to embrace using the potential of culture and cultural heritage, in particular for innovation and for upscaling technology, not only to new markets, but also to new social impacts.
Thank you very much, Maria Chiara. I don't know if we're going to have some questions from the audience on the internet, but we'll see if they come up any questions. Let me jump to the next speaker. And Michalis, what's the policy development from where you are?
Right. So thank you very much for having me here, for giving me the opportunity to address your final event. It's a pleasure to listen to all these valuable insights. My name is Michalis Moschovakos. I am policy officer in the unit that manages that cluster of Horizon Europe that deals with culture, creativity, and inclusive society. Sorry, the so-called Cluster 2 of Horizon Europe. And although we have worked in the past with cultural heritage, this is the first time at the EU level that we have given such a visibility to the domain of cultural heritage, and I think this was also a very a political decision. So, how do we perceive cultural heritage in our unit, in our way of working in Horizon Europe? Well, the concept and the notion of cultural heritage, as we also heard, is changing over time. And while in the past it was often limited to more in artifacts and their preservation, now this has evolved with our societies, and now this includes also the intangible heritage, like values, like traditions, like beliefs, and it reaches out to culture also with a small c, as represented by street dance or graffiti arts. Now, this is a dynamic understanding of cultural heritage, and I think this is also reflected in the way we draft topics and we drive research, and it helps us strengthen the glue which holds our society together, especially in times of globalization, of artificial intelligence, of big data, and so on, especially in times when there is more and more a feeling of unease, of insecurity, and of losing control. So this forward-looking approach allows us to make a significant contribution to enhancing social inclusion and in promoting citizen participation in public life. Not only does it enable us to develop a better understanding and to tackle our major challenges of today or tomorrow, it also offers new opportunities for inclusion, for participation of young people, for those at the margins of our society to come forward and really to celebrate their cultural heritage. And essentially, with this approach, we embrace the diversity that exists in our societies, and we extend a big invitation to all those parts of the society to come forward as equal contributors to demonstrate and celebrate their heritage. And I think this is the essence of our work. This is the essence of what you see in our topics where we promote research in cultural heritage. This is what drives us. Of course, you're right that technology has changed things. I mean, already we saw the pandemic posing new challenges, and it forced the sector also to find new ways to carry out their normal business. And with that, we saw the challenges that arise, especially in the digital field. Now, I would like to say, because it was mentioned a little bit earlier, that the Commission is working also on the technology and cultural heritage, and indeed the cloud, the European Collaborative Cloud for Cultural Heritage, is one of the big projects that we are putting forward in the next period of Horizon Europe. So it will be this will be a key project for us that will help connect the cultural heritage professionals across Europe. It will make them mutually reinforce and complement each other, and it will enable them and offer them innovative tools to work together on the same issues at the same time in a highly professional environment. With this project, we want, we hope, we believe that it will democratize access to advanced technologies and remove also barriers for the cultural heritage players, the smaller ones in particular, and it will offer huge opportunities for advanced digitization in the field and collaborative tools. Of course, this is a highly complex and sensitive endeavor, because we need to address a series of emerging policy-related issues that go beyond the online year collaboration, which includes also agreed data models, codes, repositories that make high-value data sets available. And also this kind of collaboration requires a legally secure space underpinned by strong policies on data protection, where intellectual property rights of the digital objects stored in the cloud are produced by the cloud will be fully recorded and traceable. With this project, we believe that we'll unlock new opportunities for the sector, for innovation, for commercialization and digitalization, for secure storage and exchange of cultural heritage under European jurisdiction. And in all, it will unlock unprecedented levels of research, knowledge, creation, curation, restoration, preservation, and innovation. So to deliver on that project, we have earmarked some 100 million euro for the next 3 years. But of course, as I said earlier, the cluster is much broader than that. It's on cultural heritage and cultural and creative industries, and we of course will continue supporting the sector with some 200 more million for the next 2 years to fund state-of-the-art research in cultural heritage in combination with contemporary issues and of course with technology. So I think that your project is coming timely. I think that your messages will come across. I mean, many of the issues you raised are indeed very valid for our work, and we will, our work is now to ensure that your messages will find the place in our work. So I think with these words, I will stop, and thank you once again very much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. Let me jump to your colleague, Fulgencio. I mean, you are at the Directorate General for Communication, Network, Content and Technology, and we've heard now from your colleagues at the other directorates what's happening. The ambitions is to put people in the center. The ambition is social readiness, co-creating the content. Where is the policy development going from where you are? What do you see? What can you tell us? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I would like to start saying that I'm an IT person. I would like to assure you and Tanya and the other people in the room that I'm still a person being an IT. On the policy side, you heard the interventions of Maria Chiara from Culture and Education, from Michael, who is from research, and my part is from digital. I'm working in a unit called Digital for Culture and Education. And indeed, our program is not Horizon Europe, it's called Digital. The program is called Digital. And there is funding for deployment, not exactly research, which means that we are funding deployment of mature technologies ready for users to use. So the main policy development that we have had in the last year is called the data space for cultural heritage. And actually it's something that is already working. You can go to it and see how it works, because it's based on a very well-known website that is called Europeana. It is working and ready since over 10 years. We know that Europeana had some problems. We are working on solving them, of course. Mainly there were problems on search and so on. But Europeana has many things that are worth saying. Europeana is and has been the place where over 4,000 museums all over the Union have put all their works, all their work together in order to be available for the citizens to visit, to be reused also by the citizens and by the companies. And that is already there, that is done. There is a common data model. And Europeana has also shown its strength in digital storytelling. I was checking just a moment ago the wonderful collection that they have published about the history, the Black history of Europe. And there are a lot of different histories about the Black Europe in Europeana. The data space will not be only Europeana, it will be based on it, but there will be much more. The data space will expand Europeana. There will be a lot of 3D. There will be a lot of extended reality experiences for the user. So you were showing some videos, and in MEMEX you are having some of the augmented reality, not only augmented reality. In the data space, there will be more of all things XR. And actually, our unit is also working in the new metaverse. The data space will also allow, for example, for new licensing. So, for example, for the data market app, the things like a new data market. So cultural heritage institutions will be able to sell their high quality data sets for a fee. That is something that was not done yet in Europeana, but will exist certainly in the data space. Other than this main strand of Europeana, there is another which is very much related to projects like you, MEMEX, because we will be funding as well projects, research projects, actually deployment projects, not research, as I said, from digital program, grant projects like you. So we will be funding projects that will feed further the data space, that they will be doing more about cutting edge technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. Mainly 3D, as I said. That is in years to come, during the whole life of the digital decade, as announced by the president, and the duration of the digital program, which is until 2027. So it was just launched last year. It was postponed since 2020 because of, you know why? Because of the pandemics, and then also there was the Brexit. And that's it. There are other data spaces in DG Connect that will be very much related. There will be something like around, I think there are 14 data spaces, and they will be very much related. The thing is that we are trying not to put data in silos, so to be connected with each other. So there is semantic interoperability. There is real licensing interoperability between the data. And the other data spaces that will be much related to the cultural heritage will be, for example, the data space for tourism, or the data space for digital skills, or the data space for media, or the one for translation, for multilinguality. Those will be data spaces very much related to cultural heritage. All of them are in a very initial state, so the contracts are to be signed during this month. So, but they are not based in previous technology or existing websites, except multilinguality, which is based in the e-translation building block. So that will be existing already. And I wanted to say one more thing. There is another project that we have in our unit that is coming from the Horizon 2020, H2020 program, that is called the Competence Center for the Conservation of Cultural Heritage. You can look for it in internet. It's called 4CH, 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 Español. They are mapping the research and the knowledge in digitalizing cultural heritage, providing best practices in advanced technology, as I said before, 3D, and they are doing, and that is also a policy, because the commission is made by people, and people are reacting very quickly to things, as technology does. Our current big problem is the Ukraine. And in this project, indeed, in the 4CH, in the Competence Center for the Conservation of Cultural Heritage, the colleagues who are Italians, coordinators are Italian from the Istituto Nazionale di Fisica Nucleare in Firenze. They received the call from the Ukraine colleagues that their data centers were under risk, you know which risk. And they wanted to send the data to safeguard the data within the European Union, in a data center in the European Union. They did so, we authorized it, was very, very quick. And over 120 terabytes of data models, cultural heritage data, databases, papers, documents, etc., were safeguarded in Italy in data centers within the European Union, and they are still there until the owners will ask them back. So that is just an example of how the policy can be, that was done 1 week, less than 1 week after the invasion started. So they were contacted the day after, and within a week, everything was done. So it was an example of how the policy is helping, is really adapting to the news and the very quick developments. That's it. So our news is the data space for cultural heritage based in Europeana. The Competence Center is also helping Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Fulgencio, for this update. I think we're running out of time. I don't know if we have any questions from our audience on the internet. No, there are no questions. So as we're running out of time, I would like to wrap up this session. Thank you very much, everybody, for being with us. I think it's very clear that the experiences done within the MEMEX project are very much valued. Putting people at the center is very important. It's complicated, but there is awareness about that on the policy level, and both from the USLG and from the European Commission, obviously. So the future is bright, and the lessons done with the MEMEX project will live with that. Thank you very much for being with us.
Before this one? Okay. Does it work? Yes. Thank you to all the speakers online, Tania Adam, Maria Chiara Esposito, Stefano Scollios, Fulgentio San Martin, and Michael Moschovakos. Thank you for being with us here in Barcelona at Interarts, Jordi Pascual. And thank you so much, Yamam Al-Zubaidi, for working on preparing and moderating this session. Again, thank you. We are going to close now MEMEX, but I need help from tech. Yes, before I give you the floor. As usual, Alessio, we cannot do without tech.
Yes, there is a person behind. There is a person there.
We're going to show a last slide. We're not shutting you off online. Like this one, no, está perfecto, gracias. So, it's okay. We're not in a hurry. Thank you. We've seen Ivo Oosterbeek earlier told us about the 4 exhibitions that MEMEX has organized. We're going to go now all together, those of you who want to join us to see the exhibition in Barcelona. It is the result of a joint effort. We have heard this afternoon a lot about partnerships. Part of the success of the pilot project in Barcelona is due to the fact that we partner from the very beginning, again, as Ivo said, all of us, and in this case, Interarts, we partnered with 2 organizations, La Bonne, which is a cultural center for and with women. It goes back to early 20th century. Francesca Bonmaison was the first possibly feminist in Spain, and she opened the first public library for women, but also education center for women who wanted to learn how to read, write, some math, and eventually hope for, professional development. So La Bonne works in this very specific place, historical building in downtown Barcelona, in Ciutat Vella, where we have worked with the MEMEX pilot project. And they host within La Bonne and the Women Cultural Center, Francesca Bonmaison, Sin de Hogar. Sin de Hogar is the first association in Spain that reunites women of migrant origin that work in the care sector, domestic services, caregiving, etc. So we decided that we were going to work with them, and we worked with them, and it was indeed a journey together. But what happened? What happened is quite impressive, we feel. Sin de Hogar felt as a community empowered also by the learning process with MEMEX, and they decided to submit one of their audiovisual products, let's call it that way. La Bonne is specialized in audiovisual, I forgot to say that, to a competition which is launched every year by a very important event here in Barcelona, which is the Loop Festival, which is about images, audiovisual, etc. And hey, they won. They were awarded an award. They won one of the awards within the competition. So the video is called The Place I Inhabit, El Lugar que Habito, in Spanish. And it's shown within the activities of this year's edition of the Loop Festival 2022. It is shown in a place right behind Interarts, Casa Elizalde, which is also interesting because it is a municipal civic center. Barcelona has an incredible network of civic centers. And what we did from MEMEX, what we all decided together was that we were going to do our exhibition, MEMEX exhibition, with Sin de Hogar, with La Bonne, in the framework of the Loop Festival. So it is a spin-off, an added value of our project MEMEX, and we're going to see it now all together. As it says here, we showcase stories from MEMEX, etc. And, you know, come with us now at 7:30 to visit Casa Lizalde and the exhibition. It's been a pleasure having you all here. One last word, please, Alessio, before I give you the floor to conclude. Since I have the microphone, I will use the power, Jordi. This is about power. Nothing is done on one's own, okay? And our contribution to MEMEX is the result of a team effort. So I want to take this opportunity to thank us all who are here today, Antonio Gucciardo, Viviana Pavon, Matteo Di Cristofaro, because it's been about all of us working together. But I would also like to mention two people that are on leave of absence from Interarts, but who have contributed to MEMEX, who are Claudia Rossignoli and Valérie Wertz. And I would also like to mention two people who are no longer working at Interarts. One is Chiara Serio, and last but not least, Fran Gracia, who coordinated for Interarts our contribution to MEMEX. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And Alessio, to you.
Thank you, Mercedes. So it's my task to conclude this section. I will be briefer with that, with just saying few words. And I will use some words that my colleague that is in front of me already used for another project. I think, and we discussed it yesterday, that MEMEX was unique in the effort we did, and in putting together with different partners working both social science, in the organizations, local organization, and technology. And I think as we already experienced in the writing another project, MEMEX can be seen is not an answer to all the question, but has put a lot of question about how to integrate technology in these aspects. And for sure, there is still work to do. And we hope that the question, at least we posed, altogether with some of the results, will be of inspiration for the future. And they say that this is MEMEX, you can see it like a stone that you throw in a lake or a sea and create some ripples. And these ripples, we hope they're going to have effect at large. And one very good thing is that MEMEX will be as well used and extended as well in one of the Bauhaus project, the Bauhaus of the Sea. So we are still keeping MEMEX alive in our idea, and we hope that we'll have more chances to work together again on this great project. And my last thing I will say is to thank everyone today. Of course, all the panelists here in presence and online, if you're still there, and because we don't see you, only this. And also all the people that worked in this project that has taken a lot of efforts, and I hope he has got the gratification that you all, because you worked great, and the results were incredible from my point of view, and given also the time of difficulties we had during the COVID and all these projects. So again, thanks everyone, thanks all the partners and the consortium for today. And this is it. Okay, it's over.